You're listening to episode 91 of Liz's Healthy Table.
Looking for a healthy new way to feed your family without the hassle and hype? Welcome to Liz's Healthy Table, where your host, registered dietitian nutritionist Liz Weiss, serves up fresh and flavorful recipes with a tasty side of science, good nutrition, and fun. Are you and your family ready for some wholesome food that tastes great too? Don't change that dial. Your food adventure starts here.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. On today's show, I will be joined by Boston University nutrition grad student Jordan Ball for an exciting show where you ask questions and I answer. Jordan is interning with me this semester, and recently she helped me create a reader survey where I asked everyone to share their biggest food and nutrition questions and challenges. And thank goodness for Jordan, because she collated everything. I, of course, just sat there and stared at that pile of surveys like a deer in the headlights. So on today's show, Jordan will ask a bunch of questions and then I'll answer. And she's going to add her 2 cents as well. I'm going to be on the hot seat most of the time. And Jordan, she will be my backup. Together, we're going to address everything from meal planning tips and concerns about carbs. That's a big one, those carbs, to ways to get your teens excited about eating vegetables. We'll talk about healthy family dinner ideas when you are pressed for time. We're going to cover a lot of ground. We'll start with questions about vegetables. We'll move on to your questions about meal planning. We've kind of categorized all of this. We have a section on nutrition and special diets, and then a bunch of just your general food-related questions. So before we get started, a few friendly reminders. If you love the show, tell a friend about it. Post a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me at lizshealthytable.com. Be sure to check out the show notes from today's show, episode 91. We'll have links to recipes and resources. Lots of info in those show notes. So don't forget to head on over there. And then follow me on Instagram at Liz Weiss.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I just want my listeners to know that because I'm doing this on Zoom, I'm also recording it. So I will put a recording of the podcast up probably on YouTube and on Facebook. I still have to figure that out. But not only is this audio for a podcast, but it's video for people who want to sit and look at us the whole time. I don't have like tons of props or anything. It's just us chatting, but I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, why don't we get started, Jordan? You know, every time, I'm not going to say every time I have an intern, but I like to do an intern show. And this is like a natural because, you know, I got so many questions in the survey, but of course, people want to know about you. So give us the Jordan story.
Sure. So my name is Jordan. I'm a grad student at Boston University, as you mentioned, studying nutrition science. And I'm in my second year of the 3-year DPD MSDI program. And I come to you as part of my practicum this semester.
Okay. And what are your hopes and dreams? Like, what do you want to do when you grow up, when you become the the registered dietitian?
Of course. So I'm looking to maybe combine a little bit of clinical work with some private practice, ultimately.
Oh, so when my listeners want to refer to a dietitian, maybe you will be the dietitian that they consult with ultimately.
Fingers crossed.
You know, we know that everything's going virtual. So I think for dietitians, it's going to be great down the road, right?
Yes, definitely. Telehealth has been a really interesting sort of add to this learning curve we have here.
I was going to ask you another question because you live in the Boston area and you live with your fiance, and you told me he eats a ton of food. He has a huge appetite. Yeah. So therefore you are like the Uber meal planner. So we're going to rely on you, but why does he eat so much? What's his problem?
He is very, very active. So always loves to be involved in some sort of, I would say, seasonal activity, whether it's skiing or surfing during the summer, running during all off seasons of those, playing hockey a little bit. So he's kind of all over the place, but loves to keep active. I think it's really good for mind and body, right? So it's definitely one of his passions.
Now, my son Simon has picked up surfing, and he's kind of a beginner, but he's obsessed with it. And he does the winter surfing. He's got the wetsuit or the dry suit. Can I introduce him to your fiance?
Yes, definitely. He also does a little bit of the winter or cold weather surfing, and I think they might be crazy. It's so chilly.
I think Simon's been going like in, I don't know, Lynn or somewhere in the North Shore, maybe.
Mm-hmm. There are definitely good spots in Winchester and a little bit of Gloucester too that he will frequent. So
definitely not Winchester because that's landlocked, but there's a lake there. I think.
Oh, true.
I think you're in the wrong town.
Maybe they drive through. I think it's just got to be Gloucester then.
Winthrop.
Oh, that's
Winthrop.
There we go. There we go.
And Gloucester.
Started with a W.
Gloucester, by the way, if you saw Gloucester spelled out, you would call it Gloucester. So I just want my listeners to know it is Gloucester and it is Worcester, not Worcester.
Yes.
All right, let's get started. I know we're going to start with vegetables. I printed out, I have so many notes for the show because we have so many great questions. So let's go ahead and dig in. You ask, I'll answer. And then if I want you to add to it, I'll ask you to add to the answer.
Sounds good. So our first question, how do I manage to include fruits and vegetables in a busy life?
Oh, that was a biggie. Okay. I would say buy pre-sliced and diced or canned or frozen vegetables. So if you're going to make like a cream of broccoli soup, not really cream because dietitians, maybe not cream, but you're going to use milk in it or cheese or even pureed beans, get the frozen broccoli. Or if you are going to make an omelet, get the pre-sliced mushrooms, like make the supermarket work to your advantage and buy those pre-prepped fruits and veggies, especially veggies. I would also say, think about using vegetables in just like everyday recipes. So spinach in an omelet, but I'm going to get the bag of baby spinach and I'm going to saute that first. Or frozen berries in a smoothie, or, slice up apples and then dip in peanut butter or nut butter, blueberries on your cereal in the morning, or sliced banana. Any way you can incorporate. I mean, that's fruit certainly. And I know we're talking veggies, but any way you can incorporate. And then when you're planning your meals ahead of time, always be thinking veggies. And I know you do a lot of meal planning, and like, is the veggie thing, is that kind of always top of mind for you?
I definitely do like to keep them in mind. So if I'm thinking in advance, I love making, for example, for overnight oats at the start of the week, and then maybe topping with a fruit of choice or adding some shredded zucchini in there kind of tastes good. Or as you mentioned, sort of chopping up some vegetables to have on hand so I can, or buy them pre-chopped so we can toss them in scrambled eggs if that's what I feel like one morning. For lunch and dinner, I would say I generally like to batch prep a variety of vegetables like a kale, carrots, cucumbers, sweet potato. And then I can just throw these together with whole grains and a lean meat during the day for lunch. And then I can roast them up at dinner if that's what I feel like.
Good. So having them prepped and ready to go.
Yes.
And I have never thought about adding shredded zucchini to overnight oats. Interesting.
It actually tastes pretty good.
What else would you add? So overnight oats with shredded zucchini.
I usually top with fruit with, I would say berries are pretty much my go-to, but it sort of mixes in there and disappears. And it's a good way to get an extra little vegetable.
So you do milk or yogurt or something for the liquid?
Yes. Mm-hmm. It depends on what I have on hand. Usually yogurt for a little extra protein boost, maybe a little bit of almond milk if that's what I have and need to use. So it depends.
I think you need to create a recipe for the Liz's Healthy Table blog. Overnight oats with shredded zucchini. Can we give you that assignment, Jordan?
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
You better do it now. Now your feet are to the fire. All right. Ask away. What's our next question?
Is it advised to hide vegetables in products or recipes rather than be honest with a picky eater?
And of course, how do I get my kids to eat more veggies? So I am not a big proponent of hiding or being sneaky. I am a big proponent of incorporating those fruits and veggies into everything you do. So by that, I mean, you could do like pumpkin pancakes and you could add some canned pureed pure pumpkin to the batter. And I have a great recipe for that on my website. And you could say to the kids, these are pumpkin patch pancakes. You're not hiding the fact that there's pumpkin in there. You can make a smoothie and you can add a handful of baby spinach to that blueberry smoothie. And it's not like you have to announce it to your kids because you're not announcing everything to your kids. You're saying, here's your smoothie. Here's your power smoothie, whatever you want to call it. I always add shredded or grated carrots if I'm making pasta sauce or I'm adding it to pasta sauce or even adding it to meatballs. You can grate up a carrot and then incorporate it. And you're having meatballs for dinner. You're not saying, hey, kids, we're having meatballs for dinner. Oh, and I snuck in some carrot. It's just an ingredient. There's oats in there. There's egg in there. There's onion, garlic, it's just part of your everyday cooking. So get into that mindset and then have your kids help you in every aspect of cooking. So if they start to play with fruits and veggies, especially veggies, and by play, I mean, they're planning the meals with you, they're grocery shopping with you, they're cutting, they're prepping, they're washing, whatever they're doing, they are part of that process. Cooking's like an art project, and kids love to be creative. So the more they can play with the food, the more likely it is they're going to be excited to eat it. And don't forget about my Color, Cook, Eat coloring cookbook series, because there's so many beautiful coloring pages in there that are fruit and veggie based. So kids, that's part of the play. They're playing with those coloring pages and they're looking at those vegetables or looking at those fruits as they're scribbling on them or coloring in the lines. And so play. That would be my approach instead of sneak. What do we got next?
We have, if you have a picky eater who only eats fruits, is that cause for concern? And if my kids eat a lot of fruit and hardly any vegetables, how bad is this? And this is from Beth in Chicago.
Yeah. We get a lot of questions about that. I get a lot of questions. So fruits are colorful, which means that they are naturally packed with a variety of nutrients. So if your kids love fruits, then the more variety within the fruit category they eat, the more their bases will be covered with all of those great nutrients. And so celebrate that they eat fruit, and don't stress that they don't eat all the veggies. But I will say there's this thing called food chaining, where you present kids with things they're comfortable with, and then you slowly make little tweaks to it. And so if your kids love fruit, what I might do as sort of this food chaining philosophy, and we should do a whole show on it, is you fill a muffin tin with little bits of things to eat. So at snack time, it might be a few little cheese cubes, a few little crackers, some blueberries in one tin, some strawberries in another, maybe some mandarin oranges in another. And then one of those muffin tins will have a vegetable in it. So it might be some baby carrots, or it might be some teeny tiny little broccoli florets, so that it's not like, whoa, broccoli florets, but it's part of this fun presentation with all those familiar foods. And now you didn't sneak it. It's sitting there in broad daylight, but you've used the fruit as like your gateway to getting there. So that would be my advice. All right, next question.
Is it bad to sneak veggies in my family's meals? They don't like veggies. The big one, my boyfriend, is actually the worst one, but my teenage son isn't much better. I'm trying to eat healthy and want my family to eat healthy, but it's so hard with the pizza boys. So maybe if I hide it. Jillian from Chicago.
Okay. So we're kind of back to the kids and teens thing. And then we're back to the picky partner. And, I hear this all the time. My husband's picky. My partner is picky. It's not just the kids, and it's not just the little kids, right? The teens, I'm telling you, are a big challenge. I'm hearing this from so many people, right? So we know that about 7% of high schoolers nationally meet the recommended intake for fruit. Only 2% meet the recommended intake for vegetables. So our teens have a long way to go. Just like with the little ones, involve your teen and involve them in every aspect of meal prep. If your teens get their driver's license, they're always so excited to finally get to go out and drive somewhere on their own. You send them to the supermarket. You send them to the farmer's market with a short little list, but make sure there's plenty of veggies on that list. So again, you start to include them in every aspect, and they can really start to cook on their own. They don't need to have you at their side. You'd certainly want to, teach them knife skills and all those sanitation, all those important things. But with teens and the picky partners, I would do dips. They love dips. So hummus, guacamole, salsa, with restaurants like Chipotle or Chipotle, as my husband calls it, they're used to a lot of those vegetables. You think they aren't used to eating beans. They are if they go to Chipotle. You think they're not used to eating veggies. Technically, avocados are a fruit, but they're green. Let's call them a vegetable. So they're used to seeing that. So you put the dips out with familiar foods, crackers, let's say, tortilla chips, but you've got plenty of a rainbow of vegetables to dip as well. And then again, the smoothies, incorporating as much of the veggie as you can, with the baby spinach, the baby kale that could go into a smoothie, but make it a dark smoothie or make it a green smoothie. Why not? And then if these are pizza boys, That pizza, you can embellish the marinara sauce again with some of those maybe chopped up or shredded up veggies. You might saute them first, and you can top the pizza with some veggies, but start slow. Maybe very thinly sliced bell peppers or something like that. So teens, ooh, big challenge with our teens. Again, we need to do a whole podcast on that because I could talk all day about that. What do we got next?
Okay, this is from Jeffrey in Bowling Green, Ohio. What is the healthiest way to prepare vegetables? Are they better raw?
I would never limit myself to any one prep for vegetables. So if you want to eat them raw, cooked, frozen, canned, juiced, I don't care. I don't like this whole, raw is best or, this is best. Sure, with certain vegetables, the nutrients may be richer, more enhanced, less degraded if you consume them raw. Cooking will degrade certain nutrients. But I don't think we should spend our lives stressing about every little aspect of this because then we'll never get a vegetable on the table. It all counts. Any form of a vegetable. Remember, those teens, only 2% consuming the recommended amount. So we want you to eat veggies no matter what. If you love them raw and, dunked in hummus, go for it. If you prefer your sweet potatoes diced and roasted with olive oil and salt and pepper and fresh thyme, go for it. However you love them, that's how I want you to eat them. So don't get caught up in that whole raw story. And I will say one really important thing for Jeffrey, and that is, and this is a surprise for a lot of people, when you eat vegetables with fat, so that might be olive oil, a dip, that's got some olive oil in it, or maybe some sort of creamy dressing made with yogurt, let's say, or some avocado or cheese or nuts on your salad, the fat enhances the absorption of the nutrients in those vegetables. So if you're eating that raw salad with some fat-free dressing on it and no fat in the salad, you're not going to absorb as many nutrients as if you did add some fat to that salad. So the raw question goes beyond just raw. It's what are you eating the raw veg with? If you're just munching on raw carrots, great, but add a little fat, go for the dip with a little fat in it. Ooh, we're moving on to meal planning, aren't we now? Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right. Let's challenge Liz with the meal planning, although I think Jordan is really going to be my meal planning person here.
So this person is looking for new, healthy, fast, tasty weeknight dinner ideas and how to keep lunch interesting and quick during work and school from home.
Yeah, a lot of people are working at home and schooling from home. And again, here's a whole nother topic. I think we should just do a whole podcast on it because we are hearing this from so many people. I'm bored with the same old dinners. I need quick and tasty and nutritious ideas. So I will say, whenever you're making dinner, and hopefully you're planning ahead a little bit, think about leftovers. So I know today I'm so excited. I'm looking at my refrigerator now because I made a really yummy rice and beans dish with chicken last night. And I can't wait to have it for lunch today. So if you can repurpose leftovers, that's great. And even to the point where you take mason jars or Tupperware or Gladware containers and you fill them with those leftovers. So everybody the next day just grabs that right out of the fridge. So there's no assembling because when you're cleaning up from dinner, you're organizing your leftovers in this systematic way. And it makes life so much easier the next day. Let's see. I am very much into power bowls or nourish bowls, meaning I'm going to open my fridge. And this is like a quick last minute thing. And I'm going to say, okay, I have a rotisserie chicken in my fridge. And I'm just going to pull the chicken off that and chop it up. So I've got chicken. And you're going to get about 4 cups of chicken from a rotisserie chicken. Just a little FYI, because I'm a nerd and I know this. You're going to set that out with other ingredients for your power bowl. And so if your power bowl is Mediterranean or Middle Eastern inspired, you might set out hummus. You bought that pre-made. You might set out some olives. I actually really love the canned olives, the green olives. I get them at Trader Joe's. I'm totally hooked on those. You set out some feta cheese. You've got some arugula or maybe some Bibb lettuce if your kids are into like a milder tasting lettuce. So you see where I'm going with this. Maybe you've roasted up some carrots or butternut squash or something because you bought it pre-chopped and then you just roasted it. So you've got all these elements and everybody comes and builds their own bowl. And so It's like a no-brainer. Or it's like a build your own taco night or build your own pizza night. These are quick and easy things that you can do. And even soups, like I'll go to the store and buy the container. It's like a giant juice box. That's what it looks like, right? So the container of a butternut squash soup or a tomato soup. And then we'll have tomato soup, it's heated up. And I might do grilled cheese on the side. And if your family likes whole wheat bread, go for it, And you could put a little sliced tomato even in that grilled cheese. So that's so easy. So look for those shortcuts, but also think about nutrition.
All sounds good. So how can I prep my weekly meals on the weekend when I have more time so that the day of, I can just throw everything in the crock pot, baking sheet, Instant Pot, or whatever? I have trouble organizing that. How much can I do ahead and how do I store things?
Wow. Okay. Well, I like where our listener is going because he or she is well on their way to becoming a meal planning pro and a meal prepping pro. There's a difference between meal planning and meal prepping. Planning means you sit there and you plot out your plan for the week. So if you go to lizshealthytable.com and you go to the top nav bar, you'll see a cookbooks and freebies section. So just click that and you'll see I have a 7-day meal planner. It's a freebie, just download it, print it. And I have a free supermarket shopping list, aisle by aisle, because every time I send my husband to the supermarket, he screams at me, why is this not aisle by aisle? So I have an aisle by aisle list for you guys. And then you do that meal planning. So you know what your plan is for the week. You know what, you're going to make chili one night, you're going to have leftovers the next day. But here's the prepping part. The prepping part means that you carve out a half a day a week to just do the lion's share of the prep. And it's painful for a lot of people. Like, oh gosh, here we go again. But guess what? You have 6 days of bliss that follow because everything's prepped and in containers. So yeah, you've got to go buy some of those Gladware containers, those plastic containers, if you will, or any glass, any type of container you like, Ziplocs, get everything sliced, diced, prepped, ready. You can even have chicken marinating that Sunday. And then because on Monday, you're going to cook that chicken, right? The marinade had 24 hours to kind of absorb into the chicken. And so it's just really a matter of being organized. But so how do you do the whole prep thing, Jordan? Because I know, you're good at planning. What tools do you use? And then what tools do you use to make the prepping easier?
So sort of everything you just talked about, right? So usually I'll open my fridge, take a minute and see what I need to use or if anything inspires me, and then I go from there. I usually just prep sort of in Excel, but any sort of, I would say, meal planning, what you have sounds a lot better. I should probably start using one of those. But I usually find that if I decide on 2 to 3 meals in advance, and then I make a list of all the ingredients, I find this is particularly cost effective and keeps me from generating extra food waste, which is important. For the most part, I will take that, half day on a Sunday or a couple hours, slice and dice everything that's not too watery. I usually will leave if you're, I won't slice a tomato in advance necessarily, but any of the, bell peppers are great, right? And so I store them as separates. And then day of comes and maybe I'll throw it in a crock pot or I will roast them up in the middle of the week. And it makes my life a lot easier, especially as a grad student and, trying to balance all aspects of that. So it might take a few extra minutes, but I find that it is really helpful in sort of keeping me on track. And it makes sure that I am using everything that I buy, which is great.
Right. I did a podcast with Toby Amador on meal prepping, and she wrote a book on this. And so I really want people to go back, and in the show notes, I'll give you a link to that. I want you to listen to that show. And what Toby says, she kind of uses Sunday as her day to shop and do all this prep, or you could always shop on Saturday and prep on Sunday, however you want to do it. But Toby says when you're doing that prep afternoon, let's say, always think of one big thing you can do right then and there, like the batch cooking. So fill your crock pot with the ingredients for whatever you're doing, a chili or, a chicken, whatever, and get that done. So you've got this one mega meal, you're going to have tonight. And then maybe that's going to be leftovers on Tuesday, or maybe you're going to freeze some of it and have it next week or the week after. So be thinking big as you're doing that prep, right? And I loved her advice on that. So definitely listen to that show. All right. Next question.
My 7 and 8-year-olds have been swimming and I'm trying to help dial in their nutrition. They have hard workouts and are often during dinner time. Do you have any suggestions for a nutritious after school snack or a post-workout small dinner? This is from Katie in St. Louis.
Okay. So Katie, I have been there, done that because I raised 2 boys. Josh is 25 now. Simon is 22. So afternoon snacks were huge in our house. And like mini dinners were big followed by a big dinner. I mean, I can never fill these guys up. So sort of our go-tos for those afternoon snacks were definitely smoothies. And here's a smoothie idea packed with nutrition and calories. We always talk about, oh, I need to cut calories. Well, for a lot of people, they actually need to eat more calories, especially kids like Katie's kids. And so the smoothie I would do would be almond milk or cow's milk as your base. I would add a tablespoon or two of a nut butter, almond butter, peanut butter. I'd add a banana. What I like to do is take ripe bananas, peel them, slice them, freeze them. Because when you put them in the blender, it's so much easier when they're like frozen in those coin shapes. And the frozen adds a nice kind of frothiness. And I love a cold smoothie. You could add some protein powder if you choose, or you could just go with Greek yogurt because Greek yogurt is higher in protein than regular yogurt. And then I would add blueberries and some cocoa powder. So it's like this chocolate peanut buttery or almond buttery smoothie packed with nutrition and good calories. I might do a quesadilla, a flour or a corn tortilla. I'd add some cheese. I'd add some black beans, and I would add leftover whatever. Maybe I've got some leftover roasted cauliflower, chop it up, throw that in, some salsa, cook that in a skillet, and then serve it with guacamole or avocado slices on the side. And I'm telling you, thank you, Chipotle, AKA Chipotle. People love guacamole now. And then a peanut butter sandwich with slices of banana or apple inside for a little extra. So that's what I would do for snack time. Can you think of a snack, Jordan, since you are about to marry a guy who's probably snacking constantly?
Always snacking. I'm trying to think of some of his favorite snacks. The sliced veg with various dips, like Greek yogurt dips, are probably a go-to in this house. They go very quickly every week. Sometimes we mix it up. Sometimes we'll sort of make like a little caramelized onion Greek yogurt dip, or hummus is really tried and true. Always tastes good.
Good stuff. All right. We have another question here. Oh, this is not a surprise, about quick nutritional meals from Jerry in Waterbury, Connecticut. Jordan, I think we got to do a podcast on quick nutritional meals. Find me an expert. I mean, there's a million out there, but we
definitely
we need somebody with like a rockin' good cookbook, because I love doing cookbook giveaways on the show. So yeah, a couple of ideas for those quick nutritional meals. I love pasta and I love meatballs. Now, I'm sure people listening are like vegetarians, or they prefer chicken or turkey or whatever. You could do meatballs that you make from scratch, or you can buy them frozen if you're looking for the quick, or you can make them and freeze them and you'll have them later. You've got the Beyond Meat meatballs made with a vegetable-based protein. It sort of mimics the mouthfeel and the flavor of beef. You could do turkey, chicken, whatever. So I love the meatballs and pasta with a marinara sauce with a salad on the side. Salads you can buy pre-washed, pre-bagged. They come together quickly. You could buy the bags of broccoli florets, like they have them at Trader Joe's. I'm sure they have them they have them at the Stop and Shop. I like to toss those florets in a little bit of olive oil, kosher salt and pepper. I pop them in the oven at 425, give them 10 minutes, stir them up, give them 5 minutes, 10 minutes more. They get crispy. I mean, they really cook quickly. You'll be surprised. And they're so good. Broccoli florets that are roasted are great. And then for another meal, I would take like canned tuna or salmon and do tuna cakes or salmon cakes. I have that recipe on my website. And then veggie burgers all the way. I always keep veggie burgers in the freezer. You can cook those up, add sliced tomato, lettuce, cheese, serve it on a bun, serve it on a salad. Veggie burgers to the rescue. Do you ever make them from scratch, Jordan?
I have. I find they don't quite stick together when I make them. It's when I buy them. So I usually purchase mine, but I have tried black bean burgers. I do love them.
I love the frozen veggie burgers. There are so many to choose from.
Many.
I mean, ridiculous, right? When you think about it. So that's a great one. Keep them in the fridge, keep them in the freezer rather. I mean, yeah, that's the go-to. All right. What do we have next?
Okay. Our meal delivery services like HelloFresh, Home Chef, Blue Apron, etc., worth the money. And this is from Lori and Devil's Lake,
North Dakota. Devil's Lake, North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Do you know I have never been to North Dakota?
Neither have I.
I've been to every state but North Dakota. There's like 3 more. I don't think I've been to Mississippi, but I need to get to North Dakota. All right. I love this question. Is it worth investing in HelloFresh or Blue Apron? Okay. I've done them all. And I'm going to give you the pros and the cons. They're not cheap. They're pretty expensive. So cost is an issue. If cost is an issue, they are going to be pricey. I find there's a lot of packaging, and that really aggravates me. It comes on ice and the box and the package, and they say you can recycle everything. And that's true, but it's like so much work to thaw out those ice packs and squeeze the stuff out. Like, to me, it's just a lot of waste. But of course, it's so fun and so interesting because you're experimenting and trying so many new types of recipes you would never try. Because, it might call for some weird random ingredient that you have never seen. And they send you like a little container of it. So you use it that one time instead of buying this whole jar of something you might never use again. So from that perspective, you can experiment a lot. That's the positive. If you have teens or tweens at home or even little ones, I would have them, again, go on the website, pick out the meals they want to try. And then when it arrives, they're the ones who do the food prep. There's really no prep. It's already done for you. And they cook that meal. So if you want to get your kids cooking more and you don't know really how to start with one of those meal services. And maybe you just do it once a week or you do it twice a month, but you can do it and see if it gets your teens, your tweens, your kids more excited to try new foods and to get more involved in the kitchen because we're all exhausted. We are cooking a lot these days. Let the kids help. So it depends is my answer. Have you tried any of them, Jordan? Have you tried any of those meal services?
I have tried Blue Apron in the past, and it was sort of exactly that. It was really fun to not have to think about going to get all the ingredients and coming up with dinner ideas myself. But I did find that just as we talked about, meal planning and prepping truly is a more cost-effective way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pricey. If you meal prep and you meal plan, that's the cheapest. I don't want to say cheapest, least expensive way to get healthy dinners on the table. All right. Moving on.
Next up, we have batch cooking.
Question mark.
Question mark.
Batch cooking, question mark. Listen to the 2 shows I have done with Rachel Tiemeyer on freezer cooking. And she is like the queen of batch cooking. And batch cooking is where you will cook a big chili, a big pot of something. The rice and beans I talked about earlier, a big lasagna. And that's a batch, right? And then you portion it out and you freeze it and you label it. You've got to label it because I can't even tell you how many times personally I've pulled things out of the freezer in that nice Tupperware container. And I'm like, what on earth is this? And how long has it been in there? So the labeling comes in handy. It's a must when you're batch cooking. But it's such a great time saver. And in the freezer cooking show, Rachel talks you through how to batch cook with friends. Now, maybe we can't do it now with COVID, but when this nightmare is over, you get together with friends and you all batch cook together. And then you end up bringing home multiple types of dishes. And it's a money saver and a time saver and it's social. It's really fun. So I'll put a link in the show notes to I think it was episode 11. It's one of the best shows I've ever done. I loved it. And then anytime you're cooking a recipe, just double it, double the soup, the chili, the stew, the casserole, portion and freeze for later. Again, batch cooking's great.
Okay. What is something I can throw together quickly when I'm exhausted or haven't planned ahead? And this is from GJ in Cypress, California.
Well, number one, GJ, I'm jealous that you live in Cypress, California. My husband is behind me sneaking out the door. So now that I'm podcasting from my kitchen and recording video and audio, it's like a whole new dynamic, right? So Tim is like very slyly he's tiptoeing. Maybe he'll make a cameo on camera. He says, no, just pop your head in. You've already disturbed me. You might as well pop your head in and just say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday.
Now you're half ahead. This won't air on a Friday. It's going to air on a Wednesday. Say happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday in the future.
Okay. Goodbye. All right. So GJ, jealous of you living in California because I'm freezing right now and there's so much snow on the ground. All right. Let's see. Oh, I have such a great idea. What is something I can throw together quickly when I'm exhausted? I have the best recipe. So DJ Blattner wrote this book called The Flexitarian Diet, and she's on Instagram. She's awesome. And I am going to do a podcast with her on the flexitarian diet. What is it? It's basically a flexible vegetarian diet, but she has so many quick and easy ideas. And I went to a virtual Zoom class that she did the other day with Danone North America. They do, yogurts and cheeses and soy milk and silk and all that. And she did this recipe that was so great. So she took a 10-ounce bag, and I did it too, a 10-ounce bag of frozen butternut squash cubes, put it in a saucepan with some water, salt, and pepper, and let that cook and bubble for like 8 minutes. She then cooled it. And then she put it into a blender, just a little blender, a little food processor. And she pulverized it and pureed it. And then she just poured it back in the pot. And then she put in a cup of cheese and let it melt, the shredded cheese. And if you're a vegan, you can get the vegan shredded cheese. I think it was So Delicious is the brand, and it melts nicely, or just do regular cheddar. And that's your cheese sauce. Now you have this amped up cheese sauce because you've got the butternut squash in it. And this, by the way, is really great for those teens who don't eat their veggies, or toddlers who don't eat their veggies, because you've got this cheese sauce, but the bulk of it is the butternut squash. And you literally just opened up the frozen bag and you threw it in the pot. So you serve it over, get this, baked potatoes. You serve it over homemade nachos. You can serve it over pasta. I know she's got a few more ideas. Oh, roasted broccoli. I talked about roasted broccoli before. Actually, you could do the potatoes, baked potatoes with the cheese sauce and the roasted broccoli. And that's a meal. Think about that. It's so good. That would be my suggestion for GJ.
That sounds delicious. Whew, I'll have to try.
I have it in my fridge right now.
Next one. So I keep making the same meals over and over due to a picky teenage eater, but my husband wants variety. How do I plan meals that everyone will eat?
Those picky teens, man, oh man, we got a problem here, people. Forget the toddlers. They're in good shape. It's like these teens are really struggling. My recommendation is build your own nights. I talked about the Power Bowl before, right? Where you build it, you lay out all these ingredients. Your husband wants variety. You got variety, but you can do this for taco night. You can do this for chili night. You can do this for pizza night. So everybody you can get the naan. I'm not going to say naan bread because that's like saying bread, but the Indian naan, you can get the naan, and it does come whole wheat or regular. And you can create pizzas on top of that. It's so good. But you can use it, sort of Americanize it, for your palate if you choose, or you can add Indian inspired flavors. But if you were to go with individual pita bread or naan or something like that, or the little boboli, the little individual pizza crusts, put out the marinara sauce, put out a ton of sauteed veggies, put out the shredded cheese. And so you have this whole variety. Everybody builds their own. I do love caramelized onion, by the way. And then you get the variety, and then your teens slowly, because you're role modeling and it's fun and you have all these choices, slowly will hopefully start to get more experimental and expand their horizons when it comes to what they're adding to the tacos, or and by the way, when you're making tacos and you're sauteing up that ground beef or turkey and you're adding your salsa to it, you can add some canned black beans, add some cheese, blends right in. That's your filling for the tacos. And then your taco bar, all those cool toppings, the shredded lettuce, the chopped tomato, the avocado, the Greek yogurt. I don't love sour cream. I do plain Greek yogurt, the olives, right? You're building your own, and you're adding variety, you're expanding your repertoire. Problem solved.
Sounds good.
We have a new category, don't we now?
That we do.
Diets and medical nutrition questions. I will put on my lab coat. Please ask the first question.
So our first question has to do with cooking for a sensitive stomach.
That is kind of a vague concern, like a sensitive stomach. I'm not sure exactly what the issue is here, right? So without talking to my reader or my listener directly, I can't really give advice on that. But I will say that I'm guessing it's irritable bowel syndrome. And if it is IBS, then I would refer you to the podcast I did with Kate Scarlatta on the low FODMAP diet. And that is a diet designed for people with IBS. And without getting into it too deeply in the Q&A show that we're doing now, tune into Kate's show. It's invaluable and it is a life changer. All right, next question.
Next question. How do I get off sugar?
Ooh, that's a biggie. People love that topic. Well, they struggle with it, but they ask that question a lot. I've done 2 shows in the past on how to cut sugar out of your diet. The most recent one was about a year ago, and I featured an author of a book called Half the Sugar, All the Love. And I will again give you the link to that in show notes. But The a few quick tips would be if you're baking and it calls for 2 cups of sugar, cut it down to 1.5 cups. Like you can always cut some sugar out. You never have to do as much as they call for. If you're making an apple crisp and it calls for 1/2 cup of sugar, brown sugar, forget it. You could literally do a tablespoon because there's just so much natural sugar in fruit. And if you do need to satisfy your sweet tooth, go with the fruit. 100% fruit juices. These things have no added sugar. If you're using dried fruit, go with the no added sugar dried fruits. And that would be dates. Somebody just sent me a ton of medjool dates, by the way. I don't know why, but I got a package with like a lifetime supply of dates. So I need to make date bars or something. But dates, raisins, apricots, no added sugar. And then if you're using honey or maple syrup, that's still added sugar, but just a drizzle here and there instead of like a ton of it, right? So just start thinking about portions. That's a great way to cut back. And then read labels. Added sugar is now included on labels, and that will guide you as well. All right. I hope I covered that.
Our next question has to do with getting my family to eat less meat. We do eat meat, but I try to make sure I have a lot of vegetables along with the meal. I enjoy meatless meals, but my husband and son less so. So this is from Leslie in Boise, Idaho.
I'm loving how we are covering like the entire country today, right?
Yeah,
We've been to Connecticut, North Dakota, Idaho, California. Okay. So how did we cut back on meat? So I love red meat personally. And when I eat it, I eat the cuts that really suit my appetite and my goals. So I love lean cuts. I like red meat, but I want the lean cuts. And so for those lean cuts, I will go for ground beef, but I'll always make sure I'm getting like the 93% lean or even leaner. When I'm buying certain cuts, like I love making a pot roast. And that's a cut of meat that's really lean, but you're going to have to cook it low and slow, meaning you're going to braise it. It's going to cook for hours, right? Or it does really well, like in a crock pot, for example. Or I love beef stew. And again, that stew meat is really lean. You want to trim the visible fat, certainly, but you're going to sear it. You're going to cook it in that liquid, in that stew liquid very slowly over low heat. The muscle fibers break down and it becomes so tender, or tender, as we say, because I did grow up in New York. So fork tender, delicious. So go for those lean cuts of meat, and also make the meat less the star of your plate and make your vegetables and your whole grains the stars. And so the meat is smaller. It's still on the plate, but it's not a gigantic portion. It's a smaller portion, right? The deck of cards we've always heard about, 3 to 4 ounces. So just cut back on your portions. Or try Beyond Meat or some of these other products on the market that are really designed to mimic the flavor and the mouthfeel, the texture of meat, of beef. And try some of those. Try those Beyond Meat burgers or the Beyond Meat sausages or meatballs. You might like them. They do tend to dry out. Like if you're going to grill them, don't overcook them. I actually like to cook them in a skillet. I think they taste better and you can control a little bit more. So they're really good. And just remember that beef is nutrient rich, but like any food, variety is best. Beef has protein, iron, zinc. Zinc is so important for immunity, but variety. I love variety. We don't want to just eat the same thing every day. Shake it up, right? It's the spice of life, variety.
Our next question has to do with cutting carbs and eating less sugar on repeat.
Oh boy. Well, I did address some of the sugar. The carb thing is really interesting because I think people are really concerned about it because they find themselves eating refined carbs all day. So it's the refined carbs. I want to just say it's not carbs. It's the refined carbs that I think we should be concerned about because the refined carbs don't carry as many nutrients as those whole carbs, like whole grains, right? So if you think of oatmeal in the morning, that's a whole grain. That's a carb. It has good fiber in it and a lot of nutrients. If you think of pasta, you could get whole grain pasta, or you can get one of the bean-based pastas. And then you get more nutrients, right? Because you're adding the fiber to it or you're adding the beans to it. So within the carb world, remember, carbs give us energy, really important part of the diet, but we don't want to be eating refined carbs all day long. Now, the positive of some of these refined carbs is that they are fortified with important nutrients like iron and folic acid, but variety. So if you love white rice and that's part of your cultural cuisine, I'm never going to tell you to go to eat brown rice. Like, you don't want to eat it, don't eat it. If you're going to eat white rice, that's great. Add beans to it. Or when you're having your breakfast cereal, go for the whole grain, the whole wheat, let's say, or whole grain cereal. So don't just always go with the refined. That's one way to start to cut back. And then, anytime you're eating a grain, quinoa, rice, pasta, think about how you can marry it with something else that's packed with nutrition. Dried fruits, chopped nuts, roasted vegetables, fresh herbs. So it's not just like I'm eating pasta. No, you're eating pasta with this beautiful marinara sauce. You've got roasted veggies in there. So you're using it as the foundation for something. And then you're building upon it. You're having a parfait with whole grain cereal. You're adding some Greek yogurt. You're adding chopped nuts. You're adding fresh berries. And so the carbs are part of something really spectacular. It's not just like carbs. I hope that answered the question. Anything else you want to add to that one, Jordan?
I think sometimes what I like to do is mix maybe some rice broccoli or riced cauliflower in with, say, rice I'm already eating. So it just sort of gives it that nutritional boost. As you said, sort of pairing it with something that also is nutrient rich. And it's filling, but if you are concerned about cutting carbs, that is, I think, one way to do it.
I love that. And even like you can get flour tortillas now that aren't made out of flour. They're made out of beans or, the other day, I'm going to grab
an almond flour tortilla or something.
The other day, I got this gluten-free chickpea flour. This was part of DJ Blattner's, Don Jackson Blattner's cooking demo. And I used this chickpea flour. For those of you watching and not listening, I'll put this in the show notes. Use a chickpea flour, mixed it with water, a little salt and pepper to make kind of these. It looked like a corn tortilla, but it's not. It's just made with this chickpea flour. You get the fiber, you get the protein, and you could use it for all sorts of things. So when we have DJ on the show, that's going to be a good one. So there's, let's see, a quarter cup has 4 grams of fiber, 6 grams of protein, and it still has carbohydrate. I mean, but it's going to be less than if it was just all flour, let's say. So be creative, with different types of quote unquote flours. I use almond flour a lot when I'm baking. Oh, I love that. So I'm getting that the good fats. I'm getting the good protein from that. Oh, and can I ask you, when you're doing, Jordan, when you're using like cauliflower rice or broccoli rice, do you rice it yourself or do you buy it frozen or prepped, in the fresh food section? How do you do that?
I've done both. I will say I usually buy it either from the frozen or in the pre-prepped section, just because it is time saver, right? If you're trying to get, that meal prepped meal on the table, pre-riced is, I think, the way to go.
Yeah, I just saw the broccoli rice at the Stop and Shop, and I thought, brilliant. I mean,
already done for you.
The freezer is your friend, people. Let me tell you that my freezer right now is so packed. It's actually too packed. It's irritatingly packed. I literally tell people, please do not send me any more food. Because, as a food writer and blogger and podcaster, a lot of food companies will like reach out and want to send me stuff. I'm like, no, please no. So when these dates showed up yesterday, I was like, what the heck is this? Where did it come from? Why is it here? Anyway, next question, please. Okay.
I would like to try some new and interesting veggies. We tend to avoid any veggie with a higher glycemic index, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, i.e. anything that grows underground.
So somebody here is concerned about the nightshade vegetables, and we're not going to get into too deep of a conversation about that, because if that's someone's choice, I will say I have a friend from years ago who, when she did eat the nightshade vegetables, it flared up her arthritis. Now, personally, I can eat any vegetable and it doesn't bother me, but everybody has their own individual diets, and I respect that. But if you're looking for some variety, let me give you a few ideas. I'm completely obsessed with bok choy right now. You can buy baby bok choy, or you could buy the big head of the bok choy. And I like to slice it up, put it in a salad spinner, and I wash it because it could be a little gritty, spin it dry, and then I'll saute it just for a few minutes with a mix of a little bit of olive oil and sesame oil. I add a little fresh garlic, fresh ginger. And by the way, I leave my fresh ginger in the freezer. And then I just pull it out and I use my little microplane, just shred a little bit. And then I saute that up. And then I add a little bit of light soy sauce. And that is the yummiest side dish ever. It's got some crunch to it. The leaves there's like the leaf part, there's a stem part. Delish. So bok choy is one to shake things up. And then, roasted cauliflower or Brussels sprouts. I love to take Brussels sprouts. I trim them, I slice them in half. And then I toss them with extra virgin olive oil, salt and pepper, maybe a little bit of chopped rosemary or thyme. And then I roast it. And my roasting technique is I like to put foil on a baking sheet because otherwise it's makes life easier with easier cleanup. So I put the foil on and I will roast my veggies typically at 425. I always give them 10 or 15 minutes and then I will pull them out and toss them, put them back in. I keep an eye on them because everyone's oven is a little bit different. And as soon as they get like caramelized and soft, they are done. And then roasted veggies are naturally sweet. And I love those. What about you, Jordan? What do you, how would you shake it up in the veggie world for this listener?
I don't know if these are new and interesting per se, but I do personally love asparagus and snap peas when they're sort of in season, especially. Honestly, even green beans, I feel like you can roast them up or quick pan saute, or even eat them raw, slightly steamed, a little crunchy. Those always sort of hit the spot. And honestly, even something as simple as sliced cucumbers or carrots with varying dips, like we've been talking about for most of this podcast, it's a great option.
I do love the English cucumbers or the little curvy cucumbers because they're not as seedy, if you will, and they're not as watery. And so I love having those cucumber with dips. It's like the best, especially in those power bowls, cucumbers. Yeah. And kids like cucumbers and they're fun. Little rounds, little eyes. Yeah. Very cute. All right. We're moving on. Wait. Yeah, we're moving on into our general food category. And we've got just 6 or 7 more questions, folks. And I hope this has been helpful for everybody listening. But ask away. What do we got?
What are some healthy fats other than avocado, nuts, and olive oil for snacks?
Well, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds. I love pumpkin seeds. I buy the toasted, lightly salted pumpkin seeds, and I just add them to my breakfast cereal. I add them to parfaits. I add them to salads. I use them as toppings on soup. They are delish. And then the chia seeds are really great, like in a smoothie, because it kind of thickens it a little bit, and it's very filling, a good fat. The hemp seeds, again, I'll use those just like I would those pumpkin seeds. Olives. I love olives. Really good for snacks. And as I mentioned, I love the canned olives, the green olives, pitted. I get those at Trader Joe's. Tahini. Tahini is to people in the Middle East, like ketchup is to Americans. They eat it every day, all day on everything. You'll find it as an ingredient in hummus. Tahini sauce, you can make a tahini sauce and drizzle that on, roasted veggies or a salad. Salmon is a really great source of healthy fat. You could take a can of salmon, add a little bit of shredded carrot to it, a little bit of light mayo or Greek yogurt, maybe some chopped dill, and make a little salmon salad, and then use that on top of crackers. What a good snack, right? And good fats. Eggs, good source of healthy fats, and nut butters, of course, right? You could have apples and, almond butter. You can do that PB&J sandwich I talked about, or PB and banana, add it to smoothies. So nuts and nut butters. What am I missing? Anything? What do you think?
I don't know, but I do like to keep the nut butters sort of in those little packets on hand in various bags that I have just in case on the go.
And
Not that we're on the go all that much these days, but in future and in past.
I like that. So the squeezy, the little squeezies.
Yes, just to have them on hand.
What a good grab and go. Brilliant. I had not thought of it. All right. I hope that was helpful. A couple more questions. What's next on our list?
Okay. How much meat is okay to eat? I see so much conflicting information. And which meats, if any?
Yes. Well, I talked about it earlier. I'm all for variety. So if you like beef, sure, eat beef, but I'm not going to say eat it every day. But there's beef, chicken, pork, turkey. There's seafood. That's not really meat. There's sausages. I always get like the all natural sausages. But as far as how much to eat each day, that really depends on how many calories you're eating. A 2-year-old will be eating a very different type of a portion than a teen, than a 40 or 50-year-old. So based on, say, like a 2,000 calorie diet, Jordan, how much meat is okay?
It is about 5.5 to 6 ounces for an adult per day is what My Plate recommends to us.
Okay. So myplate.gov, a great resource for you guys. You go in there and it's actually, there's a tool where you can put in, I believe, like your age, your activity level, your gender, and then it tells you approximately how many calories you need in a day. And then that'll tell you how many servings of fruits, veggies, dairy, meat, etc. So about 5.5 to 6 ounces. Okay. Yes. Good stuff. All right.
What is the difference between and sources of probiotics and prebiotics.
Oh, I did a two-parter with, Anthony. Why am I spacing out Anthony's last name? What is wrong with me? See, this is scary. I need to eat more omega-3s, Jordan. I did a two-parter on probiotics with Anthony from Jarrow Formulas, and he's brilliant. He's like a nutrition pro. And we talked about probiotics and prebiotics. Basically, a probiotic is a type of good bacteria that has some sort of health benefit. So it might be beneficial for immunity, GI health, urinary tract prevention. There's many different health benefits associated with different types of bacteria. So the probiotic, like let's say you're taking a supplement, you would get a probiotic, hopefully with strains that have been studied such that we know they infer a health benefit. Or you might get a type of yogurt and it might say it has live cultures in it. Well, we don't necessarily know if those live cultures are beneficial. It might be so-called good bacteria, but what's the research? We don't always know. So technically, to call yourself a probiotic, there has to be some research to back you up, little bug, little bacteria, right? Like not every bacteria we know of their health benefits. It's a new science. So the probiotics, basically in a nutshell, those are the good bacteria and they're good for you. The prebiotics, that's the food that feeds the probiotics. The prebiotics feed the good bugs. All those good bacteria that live in your gut, in your intestine, and you have many of them, so many that if you were to put them end to end, they'd reach the moon. That's how many bacteria live in your gut, Jordan, and mine, and everybody else's. And these are good bacteria, but they have to eat something. And they like to eat fiber, meaning all this talk we've had on the podcast about fruits and vegetables, which are rich in fiber and whole grains and nuts and seeds. That's what bacteria eat, fiber. They break it down, they eat it, they love it. So the more fiber-rich diet you consume and your family consumes, the more the good bacteria will be fed, watered, and happy. So that's the difference between probiotic and prebiotic.
There we go. Can you talk to us a little bit about healthy smoothie recipes?
I could talk about this all day. I did a podcast with Frances Largeman Roth not too long ago, and we talked smoothies, but I'm going to tell you my new go-to tried and true green smoothie recipe. And I'm going to blog this soon. It's not on the blog yet, but basically you're going to need 3/4 of a cup to a cup of 100% orange juice. You're going to need half a cup of plain or vanilla Greek yogurt. And for those of you trying to cut back on added sugar in the diet, you're going to go with the plain Greek yogurt. I personally like the full fat. You might go for a low fat. This is the beauty of nutrition. So many choices. You're going to add a cup of baby spinach leaves, and you just buy those in the bag, already pre-washed, pre-done. 3 to 4 fresh mint leaves. And I say 3 to 4 because the size will vary. You can always add, but you can't take away. So add, 1 or 2 mint leaves, taste it. If you wanted a little mintier, add a little bit more. And then 1 2-inch piece of English cucumber that you've sliced. So there's our English cucumber. This is a green smoothie. So we've got already the spinach, we have the mint, we have the English cucumber. I like to add half a cup of frozen mango chunks or pineapple. And then I add half a peeled banana. Now, the banana can be from the counter or something that maybe you pull out of the freezer. You had that ripe banana, you peeled it, you sliced it. So throw in half a banana and then a drizzle of honey or agave. That's optional. Blend it all up. And by the way, your juice goes in first. Your liquid always goes in first, because if you put your solids in first, it's more likely to kind of be hard to pulverize. So the liquid first. Blend it all up. And then in the blog post I'm going to do for you guys, I'm going to give you many varieties, many variations to that theme. You can make it greener by adding some kiwi. You could nix the green entirely if you wanted to, but this is a green smoothie. You could add some fresh ginger to it to give it a little zip. So there's different ways. You could turn it into a smoothie bowl if you add less liquid. So it's more like in a bowl, and then you could have fun things on top. So that's kind of my go-to. That's my go-to green smoothie. And before, earlier in the show, I described kind of a nut butter, almond buttery kind of a smoothie. The sky's the limit. You can make more of a berry-inspired smoothie and just use frozen mixed berries, and then just use, milk or juice as your base, some yogurt, some banana. I love adding banana. You could add chia seeds to add more fiber, more good fats. So many variations. But
love the
but
variety.
it's the amounts. Sometimes people are not like, how much liquid do I need, and how much of the frozen fruit. So that recipe I shared is a good go-to.
Okay. So what are some unique ways to incorporate fiber into each meal of the day?
Well, I talked about fiber feeding the good bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, some good ways, so many ways. Avocado, raspberries. Did you know that a cup of raspberries has 8 grams of fiber? By the way, you need like 25 to 30-ish grams of fiber a day, 25 to 35 grams a day. Most people don't get enough fiber in their diets. And so, the fruits and veggies are great. Whole grain cereal is great. Fiber One cereal, 2/3 of a cup has 18 grams of fiber. So if you're really struggling to get fiber in the diet, go for a higher fiber cereal like a Fiber One. Beans, certainly, nuts, seeds, all these whole foods that we talk about, these plant foods, that's where you get the fiber. Apples, pears, like a pear has 5 grams of fiber. 1/3 of a cup of beans has 5 grams of fiber. So these are like little things, but they add up throughout the day. What's your favorite fiber food, Jordan? Do you have like one food that you think about like, good fiber?
Probably berries, I think, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Berries and maybe avocado.
Life without avocado for me would be a very sad life.
I agree.
I love avocados.
We'll add that to almost anything.
Mm-hmm. You could add that to your green smoothie. Thank you very much.
I've done it. We are moving on to our next category, a more general category here. Why are people so into organics and non-GMO? Mm-hmm. Is there a benefit, and is it worth the cost?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a loaded question. So I always say it's a personal thing. If, organics typically are more expensive, not always. But if there is a food, I always say if there's one food that you're eating constantly over and over and over again, maybe that's the food you get organic. But, our food supply is so heavily regulated and tested, and pesticide levels and residues are tested constantly. And those numbers are low, and they're well within acceptable limits for all of us. But again, personal. So when I was raising my boys, if they were on like a sweet potato jag or a strawberry jag, that's when I would get the organic. So that's kind of personal. And as far as GMO, so GMOs nutritionally, a GMO crop like GMO corn, nutritionally is no different from a regular conventionally grown fruit or a vegetable or a grain. Nutritionally, they're the same. The issue with GMOs for a lot of people is that they don't promote biodiversity. So you'll have like a GMO corn or a GMO soybean, and it's like fields and fields and fields of the same crop. And the concern is that, there's just not enough variety. We want in our world to have many different types of crops, because the more variety, that means it's attracting different insects and different birds and different little, plants that, live around it happily. And so diversity is good. And also there's bacteria in the soil. Bacteria, like soil is teeming with good bacteria, right? Which is why, we want to play in nature. It's another benefit for nature. So I know that's like a mouthful, but I don't worry about GMOs. Like I don't personally shop and say I'm going anti-GMO. I think Whole Foods doesn't have any GMO products. I think that's just across the board. They made that decision. So if you shop at a place like Whole Foods, naturally, you're just not going to get any GMO products. But I don't lose sleep over it. What about you?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I will avoid them for certain things for the biodiversity aspect. But honestly, the closest grocery store for me is Whole Foods. So that sort of takes the thought process out for me. But I would say fruits and vegetables, I do aim for organic and certain cuts of meat, but not always.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're shopping at Whole Foods, but yet you're able to stay on budget.
Yes. And that is where the making a list and checking it twice comes into play. So if I'm aiming to use certain things, I also will try to sort of create recipes that if I only need half an onion for something, I'll make sure to grab a recipe that uses the other half of the onion. So I'm not overbuying. And that's generally how it works over here.
Right. Because the food waste is, if you're on a budget, food waste is literally throwing money down the drain.
Right. Absolutely.
Or into the garbage. Can you imagine? I think the average household wastes like $2,000 worth of food a year. It's like literally like take my money, throw it in the trash
throw
can.
It away. Right. Yeah. So let's try to avoid that.
Meal planning really works wonders to keep you on a food budget.
I sort of think it allows you to spend a little more where it matters if you're planning to. So you're not overbuying, which I think if certain things, if it is important to you to buy organic, And if you plan ahead, you can make that work.
Plan, plan, plan. That's our big theme today, right? I know we have one more very pressing question, an important question. Ask this very important question, please, from Sarah in South Dakota. I've been to South Dakota. I've been to the Badlands. I've been to Mount Rushmore. So Sarah has a very important question. What is it, Jordan?
What is the very best hard-boiled egg method? There are so many options.
There are. People do love using their pressure cooker for that, their Instant Pot. But what if you don't have one? Okay, here's what I do. And I just did an Instagram reel on this that my friend Jordan here helped me do. It's like, I am never going on TikTok. It's bad enough I have to learn Instagram reels. I am like I can't keep up, right? Now we've got Clubhouse. There's this new social platform called Clubhouse. And if anybody on here is a Clubhouse member, I am at Liz Weiss, I believe. I'm going to double check that on my phone as we're chatting. But here's my tried and true method for hard-boiled eggs that are easy to peel, okay? So they have to be, let me just go into Clubhouse here and yes, at Liz Weiss. Wait a second. Well, it's at Liz Weiss, but I'm at Liz Weiss RDN. So just look for me. You'll find me. All right. So I take a pot and I add about an inch of water to it. I put the pot on the stove. I bring it to a boil. I then take a steamer basket and I put my eggs around the steamer basket. Once the water comes to a boil, I very carefully put the steamer basket into the pot and I close it with a lid. I then lower the heat and I let that simmer. So I'm steaming the eggs. I let it simmer for 14 to 15 minutes. You don't want to overdo it. If you overdo it, you're going to end up with that nasty green ring around the yolk. It's not pretty. And so you want to cook it just so it's done, right? If you like your yolks a little less cooked, you could do 12 to 13. I'm going for 14 to 15. I then take the lid off and I transfer the pot to my kitchen sink and I run cold water over it. And I let the eggs cool for about 5 minutes. Then I just take those eggs, just like you would normally do, and kind of crack them and roll them on a work surface, maybe a counter or cutting board. And then under cool running water, I peel the eggs. And they peel so easily because you have steamed them. Now, people do say that the older the egg, the easier it will be to peel. And that's because there's naturally a little bit more of sort of an air bubble, a space between the egg and the shell. And so when you steam it or you hard boil it, there's a little more of a cavity there, if you will. So when you kind of crack it, it gives you a little more differentiation between the shell and the cooked egg itself. But anyway, that steaming method in the steamer basket has been a game changer for me. And you're not going to be fighting, to peel those eggs. So I'm so glad that Sarah asked that as our last question. And you could check out my Instagram reel. I'm on Instagram at Liz Weiss. And I did a cute little reel showing you how to do it. And that is our show. Thank you,
Thank you
Jordan.
so much for having me, Liz.
Yeah, no, this was great. And thank you for organizing and collating. I don't even think we got through maybe 50% of the questions.
There was so much in there. So much. Very hard to get through.
Good stuff. But what it's done, it's given me ideas for future podcasts. So, I think we'll be addressing and getting, by the way, I didn't answer any of the vegan plant-based questions because Sharon Palmer, the plant-powered dietitian, is going to be on my show in the coming weeks. And I'm saving all the vegan questions for Sharon, who is the vegan extraordinaire. She is my vegan go-to. In fact, I might even have her weigh in on the GMO thing because she can really speak to that as well. So, but Jordan, thank you so much for coming on. And you did a great job collating everything. I couldn't have done it without you.
Of course. Thank you so much. This is awesome.
And thank you for all of your wisdom. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you for listening, everybody. I really hope you learned a lot today. The show notes will be packed with so much good information for you. And if you have questions, by the way, you can always reach me through the contact tab on lizshealthytable.com, or you can just shoot me an email, liz@lizshealthytable.com. I'm here for you. I love answering your questions. So thanks for listening. Tell a friend about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Reach out anytime. I'm here for you. And thanks for listening to Liz's Healthy Table.